When the red robin comes bobbing along, there'll be no more sobbing when he starts throbbing his old.
You're listening to Where You Live with Gene Sullivan.
Welcome back to Where You Live. I'm Gene Sullivan, broadcasting from the True North Painting Studio. The show is also brought to you by American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency, and Extreme Exteriors. Before we take a look at our next topic on the show today, I'd like to let our listeners know that we've got a free gift for you. We put together a bi-monthly newsletter called What's New. A lot of what we talk about on the show is discussed in further detail. People that we have on the show will also write for that newsletter. It's yours free for the asking. Give us a call at New Concepts during the week at 952-922-2500. Ask for Lori. She'll make sure that you start receiving your copy either electronically or by mail. The next topic we're going to take a look at, we're going to turn our attention to the state of Virginia. We have state legislators there who believe that those that live in HOAs are just becoming too litigious, that they're just taking each other to court over and over again. And all that's happening is it's tying up the court system with all their fighting and bickering. And they think that they have figured out a way to lessen the load on the court system. What we're talking about are two state legislators, Jim Lemunion and also a Mark Sickles, who are authors of what's called House Bill 791, dealing with this issue. They say that their bill is going to take care of what amounts to a very growing and huge concern of the litigious nature of people living in HOAs. Is that really true? Are we looking at bigger issues with HOAs than anywhere else? They say that the result of all of this that's taking place is that, number one, homeowners in associations aren't realizing that all these disputes are taking money out of everyone's pocket in the HOA because of the HOA having to defend themselves in all of these lawsuits. And they said that the end result of that is that it ends up compromising the value of their homes as well. Do you think that this is true? What does your experience tell you? Do you think that people living in an HOA have a thinner skin than other folk in neighborhoods and can't seem to get along? Is that the issue? Is the issue that boards are too vindictive and too overpowering to the other members living in the HOA? Isn't the purpose of court to help deal with civil matters? I mean, you have two kinds of issues that are looked at in the court system. You have criminal issues, and of course, if something is criminal, that person's going to be tried. When you're dealing with civil issues, you're dealing with two people who say, we have a dispute, and we don't know how to work this out among ourselves. And so that's the whole purpose behind a small claims court, is to be able to deal with a lot of those small issues. But these two legislators say, you know what? This is happening in a huge way in the state of Virginia, and we want to lessen it. Well, let me tell you, give you a little bit of a background here, because there are some things that are quite different in Virginia than in our great state of Minnesota, that it's causing for this huge numbers of people that are just taking up time in the court system in the state of Virginia. And that, once again, goes back to the issue of legislators who are trying to correct another wrong. Yes, that's right. The reason why you have this great backup in the state of Virginia is because a number of years ago, there were legislators there who said, you know what? HOA board members do have too much power and authority. So they changed the state statute there to say that before an HOA board can pass a fine along to someone for something that they're doing at the property, they have to go to court, and they must get a court order from a judge before they place a fine. Now think about that. Before any fine is ever placed, you have to go to court first to see if it's going to be considered valid. When you stop and think about it, this is something that the state of Virginia doesn't require of landlords. I guess if you own a property and you're a landlord in a rental, and you own a rental property, and someone is not abiding by the rules and regulations of the property, the landlord can fine someone. But somehow, I guess a homeowners association, going back to our discussion with Donna DiMaggio Berger, I guess that same self-governance is something that a lot of state legislatures don't believe that a homeowners association should have the ability to do. And so what we're talking about here is, of course, there is a huge backlog of cases when an HOA has got to first stop and get the permission of the court system. What they're doing is they're slowing things down. And if anything, just think if that were something that had to be done here in Minnesota. I think you would have people, and you would have anxiety and tension in HOAs at even a greater level. A lot of people living in an HOA are in an HOA. Why? Because they like the idea, the fact that there is architectural control, and that just not anything is going to be done by the person across the street that might affect values. They know and understand that there's going to be the same understanding of how people are going to live and relate to one another as it pertains to having pets and what they can and can't do, and how they can park. I know one homeowner association that we manage in the city of Minneapolis. Parking is a premium there. And if this were the law in the state of Minnesota, they would be pulling their hair out at this one with this one client of ours, because we've had people who have, when they've come in, ended up parking their car in front of the garage door of another homeowner. And now this homeowner comes home. They may be on a third shift. They're ready to go to bed, but they can't because they can't get in. And there's parking's a premium. They can't. There aren't other places. They're not going to park in front of their neighbor's garage. They want to be able to get in theirs, but they can't. But if this were the case, if this were Virginia and a Virginia HOA, you wouldn't be able to fine someone. Sometimes fining is an important aspect that needs to take place in order to be able to try and control behavior. I can tell you in the area of parking, it would be a huge issue too. We have, because parking is such a premium, like I've said, with a number of HOAs, you have to be careful. People don't realize that, a lot of the private streets that an HOA has, one of the reasons they're considered a private street and not owned by the municipality or the city is because the city said, we're going to give you the permits to be able to build a much greater density of housing, a much greater number of people in this area. And for that, you will take care of the streets. And so the streets aren't the same width as a city street. And so they're much smaller. And so a lot of times when you have no parking on a private HOA street, it's because if someone's parking in that street, it does not permit other cars to pass. It doesn't permit emergency vehicles like ambulances and fire trucks to get by in case of an emergency. Just think if an emergency took place and police were trying to respond to someone who had a heart attack and they can't get through and are detained more and have to run further because of parking, all because the association couldn't find the person. They couldn't deal with it more appropriately because they had to wait each and every time first to go to the court, to a small claims court, to be able to get a judgment before being able to put a fine on. You can see that this is one of the reasons why there is the backlog that's taking place in the state legislature. It's called the law of unintended consequences, isn't it? Here you had legislators trying to fix something that they thought was a bigger issue taking place, but what was taking place instead is now they've created a larger backlog. Well, what are these two legislators in Virginia, Mr. Lemunyon and Mr. Sickles, wanting to do? Well, I'll tell you about that, but after this break, so don't go away. More after these messages.